So I said I wanted to do anime videos ages ago, and I've not really talked about much anime since. There's been a lot of stuff going on, specifically with one of the other shows that I watched, Darling in the Franxx. I've not really made any videos on it since I did a couple of joking videos, just going over what everybody's initial thoughts were going into this series, but oh boy has there been a lot of stuff going on. We've had a lot of mystery thrown around. We've had tons of spectacular battles. We've had episode 15, which felt really satisfying after a lot of tension between Ichigo and Zero Two. And the payoff for episode 15 just felt really good, but we knew it was going to be the halfway point. So then, what have we had after episode 15? The build-up emotionally with Zero Two, and the infighting, because that was the main focal point, was getting used to the characters, knowing how they worked with each other, seeing them grow, and get to this point where they decide, you know what, it's better off for Hiro if he stays away from Zero Two, and what ends up happening is everything just goes completely wrong, until the point where we get the final climax, where they enter the Grand Crevasse and suddenly get stopped by the giant hand of the Klaxosaurs, and we get to see the Klaxosaur princess again. So, up until then, we'd had a lot of things hinted at, past civilizations, the fact that nobody really knew about emotions or how procreation was done. There are a lot of strange things in the first 15 episodes that are hinted at as to why the kids are kept the way they are. And then we find out that eventually they've had their memories wiped at some point, at least Hiro and Zero Two have. Although Zero Two has regained some of her memories, Hiro ends up getting his back, and she does as well. That changes the way that they react to the adults. The adults have their own drama going on. Nana ends up regressing back into her teenage years, which was interesting to see. We end up getting to this point where they're left on their own after the Grand Crevasse mission, and they have to survive on their own while being observed in secret, to the point where they start arranging their own, I wouldn't say Lord of the Flies style thing, but they have their own community. They start becoming self-sufficient, they start living together and really getting on well with each other, and that is really fun to see as well, because that's more character growth outside of them just being told what to do here and there. So we see them actually grow as people for once, and that is fantastic to see, especially because of the way things slowly evolve over time up until the wedding. And you see the wedding between Kokoro and Mitsuru, just because of how they feel about each other. That's another thing that's developed quite quickly. And then right at the very end of the wedding, everything goes wrong when suddenly Ape breaks in and takes everyone captive, and then they wipe the memories of Kokoro and Mitsuru again. So, at this point, the kids are not going to go along with everything that's asked of them. They essentially do not believe in Papa anymore, apart from maybe Jerome, because he seems to be Daddy's boy, more or less. But now we've got to this point where the Klaxosaur princess has basically turned around and said, yeah, look, we were here first. We're the remains of a previous civilization, and the real enemies are Ape. Now, Ape have always been kind of this weird entity that's in the background, and you're never quite sure of whether they're human or not. In one of the other episodes, I think it was 14 or 13, they tried to reason with and then kill the Klaxosaur princess. I think it was those episodes anyway. But yeah, they try and kill the Klaxosaur princess, and it goes down wrong, and she gets really annoyed by it. And then we find out the biggest kickers in 19 and 20. 19 goes all on about Dr. FranXX and how he was a scientist previously that had done some really dubious research that had got Ape's attention, and they decided that they wanted to hire him to work on the human immortality project, which costs humankind the reproductive process, which explains why there's not many kids anymore. And why all the old people in the plantations are kind of just lumbering around like zombies. But then, basically, it gets to a point where they realize, at least Squad 13 realize, they'll never become adults because Papa's busy got his hands on them and he's never going to let them go because he wants them to do his deed, which is basically attack the Galaxosaurs and try killing them. And 20, we just saw the other day, which is they all gather around the Grand Crevasse and try getting into what Dr. FranXX calls the Star Entity, which is a massive weapon stored inside the Grand Crevasse. We see Kokoro suffer from morning sickness because she actually slept with Mitsuru before her memory was wiped. So there we've got another building bit of tension again, where you're wondering where this is going to go. Multiple characters have death flags. To be honest, I'm not liking the way it looks, because Kokoro, even though she's been playing the NTR game, it's one of those things where you really don't want to see a character die, especially when they're carrying a kid, and she's suffering from morning sickness quite a lot, so she's pregnant. That confirms it. I just I hope nothing bad happens to her or Mitsuru, because I really want to see them get back together. The Galaxosaur Princess sneaks into Grand Crevasse, takes out 02, which I honestly thought she'd broken her neck at one point, and then gets into Strelzia with Hero forcefully taking over it and more or less telling everyone that the FranXX units are actually Galaxosaurs, and that Galaxosaurs work exactly the same way with the male and the female unit. So what ends up happening, and the biggest twist ever, is that Ape are actually aliens called the Verm from another race, or another planet, sorry, that was defeated in the past by the Galaxosaurs. But basically they want to wipe out mankind and take the planet's resources for themselves, and they show up on the doorstep, having not been able to take Star Entity, so they decide to try and blow it up, having launched this huge battle that takes place in Earth orbit, and just shows lots of lasers going off all over the place. Everybody else is, meanwhile, just like, what the hell is going on here? And now we're left wondering what's going to happen to 02, the Galaxosaur Princess, Hero, and all the other people, or all the other members from Squad 13. They've mentioned Nana a couple of times since she became a teenager again. Even though she's just basically locked up, they replaced Nana with another one that's really creepy. It's interesting. I love seeing where this goes, because it's had me hooked ever since the initial concept. I like the way that they've been doing everything, and it's fun to watch. I just I want to see where it goes from here, because now it's turned into almost like Gurren Lagann. A lot of people have been making the same sort of comparison between Gurren Lagann. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes and who dies, because there have been that many death flags thrown around. You can't just go through this thing with no one dying, otherwise it'll feel like there were no real consequences to any of this, how there was no real threat posed because all of them have plot armor. I don't believe that's a thing. I still get this weird feeling that somebody's going to die and it's going to be absolutely devastating. We'll have to see.